Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Counselor Tutor Podcast with me, Rory Lees-Oakes, and with me on the existential road of counselling and psychotherapy, Mr. Ken Kelly. How are you, Ken?
I'm exceptionally well. Glad to be here. Glad to be speaking to you, Rory, and excited because we've got a really interesting topic list for today's episode. And it is a special number for me. It's episode 50. I turned 50 this year, so I don't know, it resonates with me. I just got a good feeling about this episode over here. And we're going to be kicking off by speaking about vocabulary, the vocabulary that we use within our counselling relationships with our clients, maybe the vocabulary that a client may come with. How about expanding our vocabulary so we have more feeling words that we may be able to use as opposed to just the basics of happy, sad. So we're going to be really delving into that one. Theory with Rory is really interesting, and it's a theory that I'm not that au fait with, so I'm looking forward to you sharing more. And can you kind of give us a bit of a taster of what this is about?
Yes, we're going to look at the work of Mary and Bob Goulding in Redecision therapy, which is a development in transactional analysis that really does kind of link into Burns' original ideas about how therapy was contracted and what happened at the end of the contract.
I like that, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about that. And then we're going to be ending today by looking at the word conflict. And this could be conflict with peers, this could be conflict with tutors, and dare I say it, we may even look at conflict within the counselling room. And if you think of counselling, the last thing you think of is conflict, but I certainly can look back on my practice history and notice one or two incidences where maybe conflict did show itself in the counselling room. So interesting episode, and of course kicking off with that vocabulary. It's a difficult word for me to say that. I don't know why it is. It's just one of those words that does not roll easily off my tongue. Interesting that it should be vocabulary and it's so difficult for me to say. But it's interesting. It's about the words that we use. It's maybe the words that our clients may bring. It's the words we might use to reflect back. And of course, this was given to us as a gift, as often our topics are, by somebody from within our Counselling Tutor Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're so grateful to Anne Tidmarsh, a long-time member of our Facebook group. And if you want to join our Facebook group, you could do that in two ways. You could either type Counselling Tutor into Facebook. We're a closed group, so just ask to be entered, knock on the door. Of course, we'll let you in. And you can join nearly 12,000 other individuals interested in the world of counselling and psychotherapy. It's a super, super group where people can share their experiences and ask for support regarding theory or general college-based or university-based activities. Or you can go to our home site, which is www.counsellingtutor.com, and we spell that in the English, UK, British way. And if you go to the top right-hand side, there's a tab on the website. You click it, and it says Facebook, clues in the name. You hit it, and again, you can enter our Facebook page. It's a bit obvious, but we are a public service broadcaster. So we click on the side, and we'll let you in. And join, share your questions, say hi. We're just one big happy family, and you'd be surprised how many people get the questions answered and hook up. Really, really good. Yes, and Anne Tidmarsh, she asks the impact of language we choose and the importance of stretching our vocabulary.
Like it.
Yeah. And I think it is important. I am from the north of England, and that might be surprising to some people because I do have a BBC received pronunciation accent, as you can tell. No, I don't. And I will share a little piece of confusion that happened to me a long time ago when I went to London, the King's Road, and I went into a very, very, shall we say, elegant patisserie, which is a shop that sells cakes, and asked for a balm cake. And I was looked on as if I was, shall we say, not of this world, Ken. And someone said, what's a balm cake? And so it's like, And we got into this debate. Well, no, that's a roll. No, a roll is hard, and you have it with your soup. And eventually, I just said, I'll have one of those, and they charged me £5. It was horrendously expensive, but it's a real lesson in vocabulary.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this question, Ken. If I said to you, it's bangers, what would you say? It's bangers.
I'd say we're having sausages, maybe. And there you go. There you have it. That's my frame of reference to bangers, because I'm looking at your face, Rory, because I can see him, you see, because we do these over Skype. And you're kind of giving me a non-verbal, no, you got that wrong. I don't know. What is bangers?
If you live in Manchester, at certain areas of Manchester, and someone says to you, it's bangers, it means it's not very good. And in fact, it's not. It's a lot more than not very good. It's pretty disastrous. And the same is bobbins, where I live. I live in the cotton mill, form of cotton mill towns or wool mill towns at the base of the Pennines. And you'll still hear people say it's bobbins. And it means that bobbins is a reference to working in the mills.
Yep.
It's a patois that's been passed down through the generations, patois being a way of communicating and a way of structuring language. And I recognise if someone said it's bobbins, I would immediately say, it sounds like it's not very good. But I wonder if I said that, if I went further down south or went further up north to our friends in Scotland, would they understand me? And that's why it's so important, I think, to try and stretch your vocabulary. No one knows every word, but it's a good thing to stretch your vocabulary. You could do that quite simply by reading, I think.
Definitely. And I guess it's also taking into consideration that you've just referred to now, Rory, and that is that culture. We need to culture and diversity is going to inform how language develops. So for instance, if I was your client, Rory, and I brought something that was particularly devastating that had just happened within my life, and you said, that really is bangers, I would feel a little confused, as it were. So it's about cultural reference and making sure that you're using the vocab, the language that is going to match. Or if a client is bringing a word like bangers, that you like consider what their culture is, what their family is, where they are from, to be able to understand and grow your vocabulary. And the other place that vocabulary I think is really important is within your skills sessions. You're working with a client, and a client maybe bringing some material, and a lot of our work is to reflect back so that the client feels that we understand them and that we see them and that we're there with them. And sometimes it's difficult for a client to name emotions, because maybe those emotions don't have names for the clients. They just have feelings within inside. And if we have a wide emotional vocabulary, we're able to kind of use words where a client may go, yes, that's it, it is, and take that word. So if I was to say the word afraid, so maybe a client was bringing something to the therapy room, and it was clear that they were afraid. What words could you reflect back other than afraid, other than the basics? And how about apprehensive, dread, foreboding, frightened, mistrustful, panicked, petrified, scared, suspicious, terrified, wary, worried? There's a whole list that you can use. And how do I know this? Because I'm reading them off the vocab list, Rory, which I've got in front of me here. And the vocabulary list is a list of feeling words. And if you haven't got this, you can actually get it by going to the Handouts Vault. The Handouts Vault is a resource vault that we have online. It's held within our counselling study resource. The link is in the show notes for this episode. To get to the links for this episode, you just go to counsellingtutor.com, click on podcast tab, go to episode 50, and you'll find the link there to the Handouts Vault. It's basically all of the handouts that we have made for Counselling Tutor, for all our podcasts, for all our blog posts. There's hundreds of them. They're all in one place. They're all searchable, and there's a small fee because we had to create them and we regularly update them. It's updated every week, every time we put something new out, so a new handout goes on. But that feelings list, go into that if you're a member of it, and type in feelings list, and there it is.
I was sat there while you were reeling those words off, Ken. I'm thinking, how did he do that? It's just incredible. And then the spell was broken. I'm reading it off the screen. But for a moment, I thought, wow, how does he do that? And what I would say is that sometimes we will come across clients where they'll use a word that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And it's okay just to very respectfully say, I hear you say that word. I wonder what that means to you. You don't
Yes.
have to say, I don't understand what you're talking about, and therefore break that kind of therapeutic connection. You can say, I hear you say bangers. I wonder what that means to you. And then hopefully someone you can explore it. That's kind of not a trick, but a technique to be able to work with vocabulary you've not heard of without giving the client the impression, I guess, that what they're speaking is a foreign language.
I like that. And of course, being mindful of the body language of the client when they say a word. So if they're saying a devastating word like bangers, it's unlikely that they'd have a big smile on their face and be looking all bubbly as they're saying it. So we can kind of get a sense of the word. But I like what you're saying, Rory. We speak about that congruence. It's necessary within the relationship, and being congruent and using that exploration of what that means for you. I really like that. I'm writing that down, and that's going into my practice. Thank you, Rory. Nice gift from you.
Yes, and before we kind of finally move on, I could give you first-hand a testimony of how the use of language and the not thoughtful use of language can cause confusion. Many years ago, at the end of my certificate, the moderator of the awarded body came in. And she sat down and she was talking to the group, and she said, "Of course, you're all autodidacts." And
what?
Yes,
I'm confused.
Autodidacts, and everybody kind of stared at each other and stared. Now, I was very fortunate because I loved reading. I've always loved reading. And I'm very fortunate. I spent a lot of time listening to Radio 4 when I travelled about the country. So I got a free education courtesy of the BBC. And autodidact means self-taught. And I think that there's some value in, yes, you can use, I've got a very, very wide vocabulary, but sometimes it's about why I'm using that vocabulary. If I'm writing a report or an assignment, or I'm writing a piece of theory, yes, I'll write it in academic terms. But if I'm talking to somebody, I prefer to talk in kind of straightforward, good old-fashioned northern language.
Yeah.
Because that's basically how I am, And I always wondered, I'm sure the person who used the word autodidact was doing it, from the right place. But I do wonder that sometimes language can be used as a power. You can hold power over people with language. That's why the legal profession for many years used Latin, because it made it kind of inaccessible for the layperson.
Yeah.
And, we have to be very thoughtful when we use language with clients, that we use language that is on a level with them. That doesn't mean we dumb ourselves down, but it does mean we're respectful, and we don't overall them with what they might perceive to be power. It's an equality issue. It's about addressing the balance of power in the room, Ken.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much. And like you're saying, it depends on the where you are. So if you are lecturing and you have a group of learners in front of you, you will use technical words that apply to theory, but you would not bring that into your counselling room. It's unlikely that you would be with a client and say, wow, you must really be struggling with all those introjected values that you're carrying. It's just not going to work, and it's not appropriate. So it's appropriate language for where you are at. But yes, expanding your vocabulary, and a great way to do that, like you mentioned right up front, is by reading, because the books just are filled with vocab and interesting words, as is the word redesign therapy. So that's a new word for me, but I'm going to learn a little bit about that today. I'm going to expand my knowledge, because Rory, you're going to be dipping in. And what can we expect from today?
Well, yes, I'm sure some people would say it was redesign. It's redecision.
You see, this is my handwriting. This is handwriting. It just shows how if you get the vocab even slightly wrong, it's a whole different redesign. Is redesign, isn't it?
It's redesign. And to be fair, Ken, that you are right, because the work of Mary and Bob Golding did redesign. Do you see what I did there?
Oh.
The way that transactional analysis developed. And I'm going to be talking about a phase in TA. TA has had different schools of thought through the year, and I'm going to be speaking about redecision therapy, which effectively is helping clients redecide on how they're going to be in the world. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about scripts, about how we draw our life plan up in childhood, and how redecision therapy slots right in to that.
Looking forward to that learning. Let's just stop in with our sponsor. If you enjoy the topics and handouts here on the Counselling Tutor Podcast, then you will love the Counselling Study Resource. CSR was built by myself, Ken, and Rory Oaks to give you the support you need during your counselling studies. So get access to the world's most comprehensive collection of resources aimed at supporting you in your journey to become a counsellor. Take the stress out of your studies by visiting counsellingtutor.com/CSR. That's counsellingtutor.com/CSR.
Counselling Theory with Rory Oaks.
Since Dr. Eric Byrne devised a model of transactional analysis in the 1950s, his theories have been modified and developed into what has become known as schools of transactional analysis. Before we explore what schools are, we have to understand that transactional analysis proper, the theory of it, and its fundamental principles revolve around that of ego states, games, scripts, and rackets. And schools are ideas or flavours of transactional analysis that build on the already established theory. And one of those schools was called a Redecision school, and it was devised by Mary McClure Goulding and her psychiatrist husband Robert Goulding in the 1970s. And the focus really is on life scripts. Now, a life script is the story that we tell ourselves about who we are, not based on our own experience, but based on introjects from family, teachers, our parents, and also society. And as we go through the arc of our life, we develop ourselves and reinforce the life scripts. An example would be somebody who was dyslexic and was given messages very early on in their life that they were stupid or illiterate or foolish. And what happens is those introject into the personality, and those ideas of stupidity, foolishness, and non-academic achievement are then played out in how someone lives their lives and the relationships they form. And they will go on to develop scripts around that. And as an ex-tutor, I used to hear that quite often from students who would say, well, I'm not very bright because I've got dyslexia. Part of the work as a tutor was to try and separate the idea that because someone is dyslexic and may not learn in a traditional way, that in fact it's not about being stupid or less than or not even academic. It's about the fact that they learn it in a different way. And once that's been explained, that particular life script, they can free themselves from. So redecision therapy is built on that original idea, and it's also built on another idea of Byrne's, and that is therapeutic contracts. Byrne believed that if you contracted with a client for change, then once the change had been established and the contract fulfilled, then therapy would end. But the Gouldings went on to develop Byrne's idea of contracting in a more nuanced and more detailed way. And what they did was they thought of a number of contracts that could be used in therapy. And there's three particular contracts here. The first is the administrative contract. Now, that contract is a contract about the business side of therapy, such as duration of the sessions, dates of the sessions, confidentiality, and fees. So that would be an administrative contract. The therapeutic contract really is about client protection and what happens as they examine their life script. Part of this contract is to close escape hatches, and escape hatches in TA are really around the way that people escape the reality of their life. And one of the parts of the contract where they look at the therapeutic contracts, at least, is by carrying out at least 3 specific behaviours. So they're contracted to not kill or harm themselves, harm others, or go crazy. Now, this might seem quite a strange piece of contracting, but when you consider that part of the therapy is to literally examine people's self-construct and to challenge it, then you can understand that people may very, very well become unpacked in therapy, feel insecure, feel vulnerable. And indeed, by putting this contract in, it allows clients to speak about what's going on for them. And in fact, if they had a client who was thinking of killing themselves, then that could be negotiated. And one of the negotiating positions within the contract would be to say to clients, well, look, can we contract that you'll stay alive until the next session? And the idea in the therapist's mind is that when the client returns, the therapy will have started to take hold, and that particular escape hatch, that of killing themselves and leaving the world completely, will close, and they can look at their lives and be able to absorb the challenge of changing their script. The final contract, or one of the final contracts, is called a psychological contract. And this is where the client cuts through or challenges assumptions the client has about themselves and the worldview linked to their life script. So part of the psychological contract is to start to cut through the client's view of themselves, the clutter of their life script, the ideas that are not their own but are put there by other people. And if we think of person-centered therapy, we talk about introjected values, other people's frames of references that are then put on someone who then take them on as their own. So to a great extent, the psychological contract is where the therapy cuts through, challenges self-concepts, and it is quite a challenging type of therapy, because it is literally looking at clients' holistic view of themselves and getting them to check out. And here's the important part: in the adult ego state. So this is about looking at it without the kind of history of the child and the fears of the child that come from the child ego state, or the introjects of the parents. This is about getting people literally to think about themselves in a really adult place. One of the final things that really kind of influences redecision therapy is the idea that they draw theories from other modalities. And one of the other modalities they draw quite heavily on is Gestalt therapy. That therapy, of course, pioneered and developed by Fritz Perls. And particularly one technique that's used quite a lot in redecision therapy is that of the empty chair. And this is a technique, it can be used in a number of ways, but one of the ways it can be used is to place an empty chair in front of the client and get the client to speak to someone from their past as if they were sat in the chair, a parent, a teacher, someone they met, and tell them directly how they felt as a reaction to what that person had done. You could also use it to actually get people to talk to parts of themselves and to start a dialogue. So this is particularly useful, I think, if a client is feeling or getting feelings from the past, maybe around issues in childhood. And it allows the person as they are now, the adult, to speak to them as an adult and offer them care and protection by saying things like, you're not that 5-year-old child anymore, and I'm here to protect you, and those things aren't going to happen again. And it's amazing when that's used that people are able to kind of offer their own internal parent to the vulnerable child that's within them. So that's redecision therapy. It's one of the many developments and flavours that TA has generated throughout the years.
Thank you as always, Rory. I got it now. Redecision theory.
Yes.
Is that the right one? Yeah. And I've added that to my vocabulary, which keys nicely into what we were discussing before. And of course, if you want to get Rory's super duper handout for that, always informative, always well researched, you can do so by just visiting our mother site. That is counsellingtutor.com. Click on the podcast tab. It's going to bring up a whole list of all of our podcasts. Go to episode number 50, and right there on the page, you can download that handout that Rory has put together for you from this. And of course, if you are a member of the Counselling Study Resource, or if you've joined our Handouts Vault, that handout is available in there as well. So moving on from theory and on to conflict, Rory, and how we might see conflict in our studies from peers, maybe with a tutor, maybe within our personal development group. Somebody might say something, a conflict might come up within you, and maybe even venturing on where we may see conflict and how conflict might find its way into our therapeutic relationships.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And, there might be some people listening, at least one, I would imagine, with all that, without the breadth of our audience, who might believe that, counselling is a fluffy, ethereal activity where everybody gets on. And, in my experience, the professional relationships I've had both with students, with fellow therapists, and in fact with tutors has been really, really good. But occasionally you do get into conflict. We're humans and we have emotions, and sometimes stuff comes up for us. And I'm very grateful to Darren Hotwood, who is a member of our Counselling Tutor Facebook group. And if you want to join the Counselling Tutor Facebook group, if you go to Facebook and just type in Counselling Tutor, you'll find us, and you can just knock on the door, just press in. We're a closed group, and we'll let you in. Or you can go to our mother page at www.counsellingtutor.com. We spell that counselling with two L's. That's the English, UK, British way. And just come in, and you'll see 11, nearly 12,000 members of the group are interested in the world of counselling and psychotherapy. Come in, say hello. We'd love to see you. So Darren Hopgood says, conflict in the classroom, conflict resolution between peers and tutors, how to deal with personality conflict within the whole learning experience. Well, I think it's really interesting. And one of the fears I have, and I've always had for a long time, is groups that are really passive. And I've taught groups, and they've been lovely. I don't want to knock groups. They were lovely, respectful. They got each other. They were all on the same page. But I do wonder as a tutor how much personal learning there is in that. Because everything that happens in the classroom, I think, prepares you for working in practice. And if you go through your entire counselling training career, never have any conflict, boy, oh boy, are you going to struggle when you come to work. It comes up in the therapy room because you've never prepared for it, and you've never developed that. And so I've seen pretty robust conflict. And my view is that everybody who comes to a counselling course is an adult. And as a tutor, unless I saw someone actively being bullied or somebody actively dominating the group to such an extent that everybody else was closed down, I would have a tendency to leave them to it, because I think there's great value in personal growth. It is a very, very tricky balance as a tutor to have, but it does come, I think, to our old friend. You know our old friend is, Ken, don't you?
Is it transference, Rory? By any chance, could it be transference?
It is transference. Hello, transference, my old friend. You've come to see me again. There should be a song in that. And usually, when you get to the hub of it, you usually find that in some point of the conversation, somebody says, "You remind me of," and at that point, you step in, you go, right, okay, there's a learning opportunity. And sometimes conflict can be about miscommunication, people hearing something and then hearing something else. So my observation, and I'm not going to use the word advice, is that if you're having difficulty with a peer, first instinct is to take them onto one side and try and come from an adult place. Try and come from a very adult place and say, it feels to me like we're not getting on, and I'm wondering why that is, and just see where that conversation takes you.
Yeah, and you're 100%. And when you're speaking about the adult place there, I'm thinking of the transactional analysis adult ego states, where you have the adult, the parent, the adult, and of course the child. And conflict has a tendency to push the feeler of that conflict either into a critical parent ego state or into an adaptive child ego state. And you're 100% right. If you come at it from the adult ego state, and both parties are in an adult ego state, then it is merely a debate. Because conflict, if you look at the word conflict, it's two conflicting ideas. It just means slightly different. And you're very right, Rory, in saying that it's very often about frame of reference, that one person will say or think or mean one thing, and it might be received through a filter, the filter that is your life experience, the way that you look at the world, differently. And that can feel threatening or whatever that is, and it brings up that conflict. And I think it's great learning, because we look at counselling, and there's another great debate about within the therapy room and challenge and what that is. And is challenge not in a way bringing an element, a tiny bit of conflict, very measured and very, very carefully used into the counselling relationship? And I know with working with learners and working with learners on advanced skills that some of them struggled with bringing challenge into the counselling relationship, because within themselves they avoided conflict, they avoided it, and it was difficult for them then to use that. So it's about self-development, really, and conflict is going to come up. It should come up. I guess the counselling training environment almost is designed that conflict at some stage, specifically in a personal development group where you're going to sit in a circle for how many hours during your training, someone's going to say something that's going to bring up that feeling of conflict within you. What do you do? Because is it them? If they didn't say that, then blah, blah. Well, that's not owning the feeling. What about looking within and going, that's interesting. When I feel that, why do I feel that? Let me do some self-examination, because the conflict comes up in self.
Absolutely. And, that is why, of course, we say that people on counselling courses should go for their own personal therapy, because personal therapy is an ideal place to explore any conflicts and see what it is. Is it the person that you're having a conflict with, or is it the fact that you're reacting from a different place, from a not an adult place? I mean, of course, there are people, if someone hits you, it's no good saying, I think I'll just have a reflection on that about how I'm going to handle that. That, of course, is wrong. That's crossing the line. And I also would make one more observation, that when people, I came back to school very late in life. I was 42, and I can remember sitting in a classroom feeling all the feelings of being a child again, and battling not running out of the door, because my schooling wasn't particularly a great experience. And I think that, again, that's transferential. And having to think, I'm not 6, I'm actually now 42.
Yeah.
But that does happen, because it may be that some learners' experience of education was at school. Certainly for people like myself who never went to college straight from school, and all the power was held by them. So sometimes it's about trying to work out that actually it's not like it was in the past. And that, tutors do hold power. We hold power for a very good reason. Part of that is legal obligations if you work in a college or an organisation. And part of that is a professional view based on experience and training. So, yeah, it's I think, as I've said many times before, Ken, counsellors aren't made, they're forged.
100%.
And they're forged in the furnace of personal development.
I love it. That is so true. And to close off this topic, because we've got some exciting news, haven't we, Rory, which we're going to bring in a moment. Just laying the suspense there, Rory. That conflict is sometimes really healthy, and we're called on in the BACP ethical framework to strive to exercise candor, and candor is calling out when we see something that is not right, that is going to put counselling as a profession in disrepute or something that is unethical and can be harmful to our clients. And it may well be that you find yourself one day working in an agency where you see something that should not be happening. And if you really struggle with conflict, how are you going to be able to have the voice, the courage to voice that? And we get to experience conflict in a very controlled environment, hopefully within our counselling training, and deal with that and look to self, as you quite rightly said there, Rory. What a great topic. Please continue this topic. Let's get into that Facebook group, Counselling Tutor Facebook group. Come and join the over 12,000 fellow students from around the world and tutors as well. And let's get this topic brewing some more. And a big thank you to, did you say it was Stephen that brought that?
It was Darren Hotwood.
Darren, I do apologise, Darren. Yeah.
One of our moderators in the group, Darren Hotwood, yes.
Oh, thank you, Darren. I really appreciate that. What a cracking topic. And if you've got a topic that you'd like Rory and I to discuss, debate, kick around a bit, please put it in the Facebook group. We always look to you guys to kind of set the agenda for what we speak about here. And keeping with that, you setting the agenda, we've got some really exciting news for you. Rory and I, just over a year ago, because of listening to the voices of our audience, I guess, the people that visit counsellingtutor.com, we built the Counselling Study Resource. So we offer so many free resources. You're listening to one of the free resources now, that's the podcast. We have so many articles, we have so many handouts that are all free. But Rory and I put together a paid-for resource. And it's where we put a lot of time, effort, Rory's experience as being a tutor for over 10 years, all his handouts and his teaching experience, and we kind of compress that down into what is now known as the CSR, or the Counselling Study Resource. You may hear us say CSR, that's all it means, Counselling Study Resource. And it's a resource that is absolutely jam-packed with over 50 gigabytes. Now, gigabytes are computer storage space, and it's just a lot, isn't it? 50 gigabytes is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, if it's a truckload. If you had to print everything out, it's a truckload of resources. They're all digitally held, they're all downloadable. There's videos, there's audio files, there's handouts, there's Venn diagrams. There's just so much in the Counselling Study Resource, and we've run it for a year. It has been so successful. We've had close on 1,000 members come in and look at the Counselling Study Resource, and we decided to upgrade it, to put some more time into it, to give it a bit of a makeover. And we are relaunching the new look Counselling Study Resource. If you're already a member of the Counselling Study Resource, you have either already received, depending on when you're listening to this episode, or you will receive shortly an email with your new login details. You'll keep the same password, so you're all fine there. Everything stays the same. But if you're not a member of the Counselling Study Resource, we're going to be having an open viewing of the Counselling Study Resource, where Rory and I are going to, via means of a webinar, we're going to walk you through and show you exactly what is in the Counselling Study Resource. All our existing members, you are welcome to join that as well, where we'll be showing you around and show you all the new resources we've added, and all how to search it, how to find stuff, how to get support for your assignments, how to key into the really active community. So we're really excited with that. And all I can say is watch your emails. Look at your emails, look out for an email from Ken at Counselling Tutor with all the details, and you can come and join in and have a look at that. We're proud of it. And if you are a member of the Counselling Study Resource, you have a look around the newly built, prettier, easier searchable Counselling Study Resource. We'd love to hear your feedback as well.
It looks fantastic. Ken and myself have spent a week migrating all the documents over from the legacy sites, and it looks absolutely fantastic. And I'm really confident that it's the best on the block. You know, I've seen university VLEs, I've seen college virtual learning environments, and I have to say that this is a completely level above that, an absolute level above that. You can get everything you want. I'm going to be bold, Ken, and say that we're almost a Google of counselling resources. Don't Google it. That. CSR it. This is what I'm saying.
I think that Google is the Counselling Study Resource of information and website search. I think it's the other way around. There you go. That's all about frame of reference, I think that is. But we're excited. We are excited. We're shouting this from the rooftop. Again, it is a paid resource. You are still welcome. Everyone is welcome to engage in all of our free resources, and we will continue to put those out. But the paid resources are a step above, and they are amazing, and we are just so happy with this. So watch your email. That is coming your way shortly. So today's episode was an interesting one. I think we looked at vocabulary and the words that are used in the counselling relationship. We looked at theory with Rory, where you covered?
I covered redecision therapy.
Yeah, I nearly said redesign again because I'm reading my notes here. See what I did there? I very wisely put it over to you, Rory. And
redecision therapy, where they redesigned CA.
Thank you very much for that rescue, Rory. Most appreciated. We then looked at conflict and peers. Thanks to Darren for bringing that subject up. And of course, we just touched on the relaunch of the counselling study resource. And of course, you'll get an email in your inbox very shortly for that. So that's it, episode 50, onwards and upwards. And moving on to episode 51, which we will be bringing to you just next week.
And as always, hey, stay grounded and stay safe.
If you enjoy the topics and handouts here on the Counselling Tutor Podcast, then you will love the Counselling Study Resource. CSR was built by myself, Ken, and Rory Lees-Oaks to give you the support you need during your counselling studies. So get access to the world's most comprehensive collection of resources aimed at supporting you in your journey to become a counsellor. Take the stress out of your studies by visiting counsellingtutor.com/CSR. That's counsellingtutor.com/CSR.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.